don't have nightmares. I know this is terrifying. Whereas Ben, even though from like this position, like, yes, he's leaning, but this foot is underneath his head. Hello and welcome to another zany episode of Nerdy West Coast Swing, the podcast with pixels where the anchors are out of this world and the points don't matter. We are here to help train your eyes so you can learn faster and dance better. I'm Cassie Winter.
I'm Alicia Marshall. If you're wondering who are we to be analyzing these pros, Cassie and I both have extensive training and experience in both partnered and solo dancing. Cassie has about 23 years and I have about 25. So tonight we are talking about playfulness in dancing. We're talking about Ben and Torri from City of Angels. I think we both have a little preamble before we get to the video.
Yeah. And for those of you watching in YouTube land, I'll drop the link up here somewhere so you can go watch the original. So the first thing, playfulness wise, I want to talk about, because it's almost like a human drive to mime lyrics.
Yeah.
Especially if you like really enjoy the song. And there's a way to do it competitively that's more appropriate, where you're more subtle with it, or you use very choice moments where you're going to mime to the music. It's when you're miming all the time through the whole song that it becomes problematic. And so I want to just mention that there are two kind of lyrics in this song that Ben and Torri tend to emphasize, and that's the 1, 2, 3, that lyric, and also dance for me. But they're not miming to the dance for me over and over and over and over and over again. It's select and it's more subtle. The whole blanket rule of don't mime the dance, don't sing along, like they're just saying don't do that the whole song long. If you're doing it with purpose and adding it in as like a seasoning here and there, it's awesome. It can be really playful and wonderful to include.
Mm-hmm. And the thing that I want to add is that this dance is probably not like the best dance you've ever watched, but Ben and Torri, because the song is so fast, they kind of play it a little bit, and they just kind of go with them, like being a little bit goofier with it. And we've kind of had an episode on this before where like you kind of just roll with the punches, and they're really good at doing that. Like it starts off with a really great like moment of Torri like laughing, and she like puts her head down, and then Ben's like, okay, let's play with this. And so they're just kind of working off of each other. And that's something that's like such a big part about the playfulness of a dance, is that like it doesn't work if one partner is serious and the other is trying to play around with stuff. Like it, like both people have to be in on the like joke, so to say.
Right.
Otherwise it comes off a little awkward, or it just doesn't work, doesn't read well. So it's best, and in general, like this is, in my opinion, the type of vibe that you should have to a lot of your dances anyways, especially if you mainly social dance. Like that's the vibe that you should have for your social dances. One of the things that I don't want to say it's a pet peeve for me, but I feel, because I'm a higher level dancer, I get a lot of people like apologizing for things that don't quite go right, and it's like, no, that's fine. It might have been me too. I don't really know. I don't know if it was you. I don't know if it was me. It doesn't matter. We just kind of went along with it, worked it out. It's fine. As long as nobody gets hurt, it's fine. So that's kind of one of those things. It's like, don't feel the need to apologize unless you feel like you've hurt somebody, which don't try to do that. But in general, like you don't really need to apologize. Like things, just because something doesn't go exactly the way that you were thinking, or something goes a little bit differently than you had planned, like it's fine. You don't need to apologize. Go with it, make it fun. Like that's just kind of the overall thing I wanted to talk about.
And that reminds me, like part of playfulness is not taking yourself so seriously. It's being more casual about it. It's like if you were trying to be playful with some kind of purpose, like we're gonna do a Broadway bit right now, maybe don't. Unless you have like experience doing that kind of improv with this person, you might really traumatize your partner if you go too far. So make sure to keep it casual and not take yourself seriously. You can save that kind of genius level Broadway stuff, like do a cabaret routine. Like that's what that kind of stuff is for. Yeah. Anyways, I think that's enough preamble and shenanigans to the screen share. So here is that glorious beginning. So the music comes on, and if you're not familiar with this remix of this song, the intro is not indicative of what is to come. So I can't tell. I think they're laughing because they know the remix perchance. And they're like, oh no, this is our life now. We have chosen poorly.
That's kind of what it seems like.
We could be completely off base, but this is what it seems like. And Ben's like, yeah, let's just go with it.
Hannah and Meech in the background look like they're like, let's see how this goes.
I know. And this is like a really playful version, but a skill as a leader is to make it look like you led what the follow did of their own accord, and to like take it and either repeat it or expand upon it. So what's great is like the skills of a really good West Coast swing dancer, leader, or follower can be applied in a playful context. It's the same set of tools. It's just you're using them differently.
Yep.
And sometimes for gloriously hilarious effect. I'm gonna just watch one more hair flip. Go back a little bit. Oh, tonight's gonna be great.
Oh dear. I love how this beginning they're like very neutral in whatever they're doing, but Torri's like pose and pose.
And pose. It's like, what are we doing? What is this song? What is the meaning of life?
I knew exactly what they were starting out doing. Like, okay, let's go this way. Let's do it.
So great. And again,
that's
like
kind of what sets the tone for this whole dance, actually, is them starting out like that.
They're not taking themselves too seriously, and they're not letting perfectionism get in the way. So that's another part of playfulness, is like, am I willing to sacrifice perfection for something more unique and playful
and fun?
Yeah.
Like perfection is nice, but I mean, just as a consequence of the type of dancing that we do, like it's not going to be that way all the time, and it can't be that way all the time. So it's better to just like accept it and flow with it.
Yep. And we talk a lot about how the beginning of a song is not only where you are like setting up your foundation for the dance as a whole, but you're getting to know your partner in that moment. Like even if you've danced with them a million times, or if it's a genuine Jack and Jill, you want to get to know your partner in the moment and get on the same page with each other.
Yeah.
And so tonally, they get on the same page a lot faster than functionally. So they've established the playfulness before they've established kind of like a solid West Coast swing connection.
I also want to know what he says to her.
I know, she laughs so hard. Ben, if you see this, share in the comments. Tell us, what did you tell her? Inquiring minds need to know.
He was probably just like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Or something like, I hope you know this song. That's another good one.
This looks like a tactic that Kyle uses, where he like turns to the audience and turns to when he doesn't know a song.
Oh my god.
Like, let's just pose.
I love how he's still talking like right here through this part. Like, it's amazing. So I think what's going on is basically Ben is still trying to figure out what on earth his goal is. There's still like there's still an aimlessness to the swing content, which is part of the playfulness. And I don't know, when you are faced with a song that arrives at this beat per minute,
Yeah.
not
A
really
lot.
fun. It was like, oh no, what do we do with this?
Which, like, I really enjoy the song. I enjoy the remix. It's just so
So fast.
I will say though, if you're a DJ and you're going to give someone this song, give it to champions.
Right? Oh,
Don't give it to anyone below that.
don't give it to anyone.
Because this, in my opinion, would probably be a hot mess at the all-star level.
I agree. And it would be like, not just but it would be like an injury, like the likelihood of injury at all of the levels below champions would be high.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's for a couple reasons. I think that the all-stars tend to be at that point where they feel like they need to be doing things and they need to, be impressive. Not all of them, but I think, that can be the general mentality of that level, where they know they're good enough. And so they feel like they need to show that they're good enough. And so that leads to a lot of chaos sometimes.
So much chaos. And like, if we were to go through this dance in particular and just name the patterns that they're doing, the pattern content of this dance is incredibly simple. Like, yes, it requires some advanced technique because of the acceleration and the rotation involved, because that's one of Ben's specialties. But like, initially, this is a very simple dance because of the speed and the playfulness.
Mm-hmm.
So you can think of playfulness as an element to include, but if you're saying yes to playfulness, it's likely a good idea to say no to something else.
Yeah.
Like the obvious example is say no to serious, unless you're being serious in a playful way, which is a thing.
Yeah.
But often, like I was saying earlier, like perfectionism is one of the things that you can say no to in order to increase that playfulness. All right, we will move past the starter step, I swear. But I want to highlight, they basically spend the first phrase in closed position, and they don't send out until later, which is in part because the first phrase is like slower. It's like halftime compared to what we're going to get at the phrase change, right? Like if you don't know what's coming, you might not think it's that fast of a song. And then that beat drops and you're like, oh no. Like if we look at the timeline, like this is the beginning of the dance and we get out to here. And that's when the send out is.
Yeah.
And that's like a pretty big chunk of the dance considering the end is over here.
Yeah. Now Ben is getting decisive.
I know. He does this a lot in this dance, which is, I think, a great sneaky technique. When the song is too fast, he'll strike a normal anchor, but then he will add a hitch 2 counts on top of it.
Yeah.
So this together side, which is allowing Torri to have a lot of fun on her end of the connection before leading his next one. He does this more than once in this dance, and that's a great tool to like give yourself more of a breather in between patterns while still being connected and dancing West Coast swing.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're coming up on the first delightful hop and a jump from Torri. Makes me so happy.
Skip a beat. Clever. I also love that she does it in a way that doesn't like screw with anything.
I know. She still manages to be ready on time, prepped to turn.
Yep.
The only thing that would have made this better is if Ben had been a little bit more on top of it so he wasn't so close.
Yeah.
Because right now Torri's arm is bent in a way that makes it a little bit harder to connect. So she's prepped in her own body, but there's less connection for him to then lead the rotation. Mm-hmm. So this is one of those moments where the rotation that happens afterwards is basically because Torri prepped herself and Ben is taking advantage of it.
Yep.
face is fantastic.
So is hers. Like, oh.
Oh my God, and Chantel's here in the back. It's so great. Okay. I think KP is questioning what he just saw.
Yeah. So.
That one more time with feeling, because it's so cute.
Hard time with feeling.
I love how she gets pointed toes in there. So like she's being really silly, but like her base technique is still the foundation underneath.
And really the only thing that she changes is her level.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, she doesn't really change anything else to do with the connection necessarily. She still keeps it in time with what she should be doing.
Yep. And then this triple, she skips again right here. I love it. It's really subtle, but I love it. That's another great tool for like a faster song. Just do walks. And then it also gives both of them more like time and space to like do their walks in a unique, playful way to fit the tone of their dance and the speed of the song.
Yeah. She also does it in a way, Torri does hers in a way that really fits the particular lyrics and the like length of the words and whatnot.
Yeah. You want to talk about the technique of how to sit back into a connection while you're being led forward continuously like that? Because I feel like that's something a lot of follows struggle to understand.
Yeah, so it has to do with, first of all, how you are initially dropping back into the connection. So you can see that Torri, because she's like coming out of this little skippy thing, it initially starts pretty upright. And she has that right foot kind of checking behind her. But she plants the left foot, right? And she doesn't like fully straighten that leg necessarily immediately. Rather, she kind of drops into that leg and allows her upper body to hang back while that right side, or the lower leg basically, on the right side, moves forward. So she is coming from this like pitched slightly forward position. She is kind of dropping back by stepping onto that left leg, but she's keeping it in a position that is not straight. She's not pushing off of a straight leg here. She's keeping it bent and soft, and she doesn't have to necessarily keep it that bent. I think this is just her preference for what she's doing in the moment. Right. But keeping that knee a little bit softer is the way that you're going to be able to hang back. Is that what you wanted me to explain?
Yes, thank you. That was beautiful. It was so beautiful. And then basically a leader's job on the other end is to like, you're trying to match the rate at which you're traveling, basically. So the size of your strides and the timing of your foot strikes. And whatever the amount of tension in the handhold is right here. So if we apply an arbitrary weight to it, let's say it's 6 pounds, you want it to maintain and stay 6 pounds throughout this. And it changes for a prep. So right here, it probably increased to like 8 or 10 pounds if we were starting with that 6 pounds.
Yep. And I want to add to that it starts out at a different weight and then it drops into that 6 pounds. So it would probably, based on how Torri is starting, being a little bit more pitched forward, it would probably be more like, I don't know, 3 or 4. And then once she drops back into that, it gets to that 6 and then it continues through. So he's not then pulling her forward over that foot.
I don't know why it doesn't want to let me draw 3. There we go. There's 3, 6, 3, 6. And then it maintains. And then right here is where it really starts changing to prep for this rotation. And then I really want to highlight the kind of bouncing nature of the handhold right through here. It comes up and kind of bounces down and then up and down again. And what that helps do is really create a stable point in space from which the follow can do their prepped shaping in their body. It's a way of creating end ranges of motion in the connection without having to use a lot of muscle and momentum to get there. It's about creating a placement as opposed to creating a lot of tension or compression.
Yeah.
So this was the lyric Dance for Me. And Ben's face is magical. All together. I once was dancing locally with wonderful Chris No Bones Jones. And I did this arm styling where I had my hands together and I looped them up and over back of his head. And he's my height. He's a taller person. We tend to have shorter people here in Portland, Oregon. And he was like, I don't think anyone's ever done that to me before. And I was all like, how? How? I mean, sure. But
there's a lot of short follows in our community.
I know, but like, I mean, we say we both are north of 20 years of experience. He technically has us beat on that one. And I'm just like, how? All right. So another technique for a fast song like this, if you want to be having those rotations, is to go directly to the follow's torso and bypassing their arms, because hands all the way up to the shoulder, the whole arm, creates lag in the connection. Like there is, even if you get up to really high response times, no matter what, there's at least a split second of lag between the lead happening in the hand and the body following through. But as a leader, if you just bypass that and you go straight to either hips or shoulder blades or shoulders, you have a lot more power and speed. So it's easier to lead rotations for your follow and stay on time that way.
Yep.
And I love how she loops over his head a second time. Staying in on theme for what she's doing.
And she changes for the most part in this whole dance. She doesn't really do many triples at the end of her slot. She kind of steps through them instead, which is another way to really adjust to the speed of the song.
Yep, like right here in particular.
Yeah,
coming
she just takes one step.
Telemark. So this is count 4, count 5, count 6.
Yeah. So instead of having the left, right, left, she just goes left, hangs out there, moves forward on the right.
All right, so we arrive at our first kerfuffle.
Yes.
And this is just such a great, it's just such a great example of like, yeah, something went wrong, but let's have fun with it and keep moving. Like,
yeah. And they do it in a manner which, like, you don't really notice it that much. Like, you can kind of see, but then like they so immediately fix it and make you then go into like the laughing with them. You're not really thinking about, ooh, awkward.
I know. And if you're wondering what went wrong in this moment, basically, Ben is way too far over here at this point in time. He needs to be further past and around her.
Yeah.
You can see him trying to like slide into home base right there, but it's just not far enough. He hasn't passed her. And so that's why the kerfuffle happens. But I love how she's just like, yeah, we'll work with this.
Back it up. Cool.
And
Sure.
then I love just the playful, cute hand position that she just
Yeah.
sinks into her eyes, looking over the top of her glasses and these cute little steps. Oh my God, I love it so much. And then that pose, it's so great. If you can't tell, Torri, we love you. And there we had that extra hitch 1-2 again, just to help slow down the dance because they just did a lot. So having a moment to breathe is really important.
Mm-hmm. And Torri does something to help herself move quickly through that anchor. Even though Ben kind of extends it, she, instead of going into either just that one step like earlier or just a regular triple, she rather does a back step together, step in front. And so then it's easier for her to drag through and travel right away.
Mm-hmm. And she's using that same technique you were talking about earlier to stay back in the connection where she was pitched forward to begin with and then let her lower body move forward faster. Yep. So she was then pitched back. Right, I think we're going to get some more hopping. It's so good. And so like just keeps going. So this is where again it's the simplicity, right? She is using the same musical choices over again, just in slightly different ways or slightly escalated ways. Mm-hmm. And so that's creating like a cohesion to the musical choices in this dance that is just fantastic. And instead of trying to suddenly change the tone of everything and be serious, you got to stick with what you started with.
And one thing I want to add is that like generally our dance is really smooth, and so this hopping is kind of opposite of that. Especially because she's very much changing the height of her whole body. Like she's not just doing it like in the knees or like the lower body. And it's something that's helping her keep A, light on her feet, and B, up to the speed of music, because the music is fast. And so this is something that like in general, you wouldn't necessarily want to be incorporating a ton, but because of the circumstances, it's a fun, playful thing to add in, and it definitely fits the music.
Mm-hmm. And then I want to add in just the way Ben is expertly leading this loop over his own head is the reason why she has the time and the space to do this. So right here. So he's going to rotate to his left. He's spotting Torri to really be sure like where she is in space. And then this loop over his head is basically feeling just like a straight lead down the slot for her. There isn't rotation to it until he finishes looping his head and turning himself. Mm-hmm. And he leads the turn after this moment, not before. That's one of those, you take turns. Ben goes, then Torri goes. And I feel it gets lost in translation a little bit. And some leaders try to do both themselves and their partner at the same time. That doesn't end well most of the time. I think this is another dance for me. No, it's 1, 2, 3. Oh, it's such a subtle 1, 2, 3. So the lyrics are saying count 1, 2, 3, and he just turns and pulses with that lyric, and it's subtle and it's beautiful. I love it so much. And there she skipped again. So much skipping.
It's really adding to the energy of their movements without them having to do like a ton of sped up movements
Mm-hmm.
of their own. Like that's really what they're using it for, is to add to the energy of what they're doing without really having to put so much effort into doing things very elaborately at a high speed.
Right, because you can have high energy without high momentum.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing that they're saying no to. They're like, we will use momentum incredibly strategically in this dance. Because
Yeah.
if they danced a momentum based dance the entire time, yes, they're champions, but they would be on the brink of
How rough.
exhaustion very quickly. No.
Mm-hmm. That'll be very rough. Another thing that I want to add is that Torri in general has a little bit more athletic stance to her dancing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but she's really using that to her benefit here. She's really not, like, we're really not seeing much straight leg happening,
Mm-hmm.
like, at all. It's
Yeah.
it's pretty much all like softened knees and or somewhat like evenly weighted on both feet in order to be ready to go.
Back when I was having a hard time because I didn't know who amongst the champions was right for me to work with because there are so few that match my height, let alone body type. And unfortunately, I do not have access to Virginie Grandin. Wish I did. Um, but a lot of the recommendations I had was Jessica McCurdy and also Torri. So even though she is shorter, she dances tall
Mhm.
and she has like long legs for her height. And so if you are also a taller follow, Torri is an excellent example to study and to work with. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah. I'd also recommend Mackenzie.
Yes.
I also want to add in, this is not actually for Torri, but for Ben.
Hmm.
Um, Ben is really, really getting down into his knees throughout this whole dance. Like,
Hmm.
you can really see, especially like right here, you can really see how deeply he is really working into his knees. He has such a strong bend, and you can tell that because of how far he's reaching out away from himself with his feet when he's reaching out and he's weighted on one foot. Like, he's
Yeah.
reaching quite a ways. And that's because he's quite bent into that knee, that standing knee.
Hmm.
And he
Funny. I
has a really
literally was going to talk about the same thing, but slightly differently.
But yeah, he really has like a strong angle to his lower body.
The thing that I want to add to that is that there's a way to do that in a connected way, and there's a way that does that where it ghosts your partner.
Yeah.
Because I see a lot of leaders who are newer to this dance and learning more advanced stylings, where they tend to have this baseline of, I call it like the bell, where their head doesn't go anywhere and their feet go out from underneath them.
Yeah.
And the distinction here is that Ben has a really strongly grounded leg directly underneath his head. And that's what is allowing this foot to get out from underneath him.
Mm-hmm.
What I see the difference being is that leaders who don't understand that yet, their quote unquote standing leg is still off center and their whole body is like the leaning tower of themselves. And that means that you do not have the floor to ground yourself and then communicate that through the connection and actually be a stable um, connection for your partner.
Mm-hmm.
So while Ben is doing this, just notice how as soon as he's done with this coaster step, because he literally, like, they're at the end of their rope, he has to come back towards her a little bit, so that's why that's happening. But as soon as he's here, like, he is displacing underneath himself and making sure his standing leg is really underneath his head, so that way he can be really grounded into
Mm-hmm.
those feet. and counterbalance her.
Yeah, he still has a little bit of a lean to the upper body, but that's not what's creating all of this.
Right.
I think it sounds like what you were saying is that leads that are newer to it tend to add in the upper body more and not so much include the lower body. Is that kind of?
Well, it's almost like they defy gravity and they're just going from feet to feet. Don't have nightmares. I know this is terrifying. Whereas Ben, even though from like this position, like, yes, he's leaning, but this foot is underneath his head.
Yeah.
And so what I see a lot is these leaders are keeping their heads stable, but their entire lower body is going from side to side, and they don't have a grounded foot directly underneath their head.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm gonna have nightmares from those drawings.
Torri adding the extra hand to the chest is very helpful for her momentum at this speed.
Especially considering, like, you can tell how low he brought the hand down. She's having to bend over to reach that handhold.
Yeah.
I'll back up. You can really see how low it is. And so having her hand on his chest is helping offer her compression in this direction. Because right now with this hand here, that is compression in this direction. And she wants to be able to lead herself this way. Out the other end, and that's what the hand is helpful for.
Yep.
I love this just like mini matrix styling he does right here. It just fits so perfectly with the playfulness of the song.
I love the choice that we have after breaking the connection out of this one foot here. So it looks to me like Ben is the one that releases, and then Torri's just like, okay. Is that what it looks like to you?
Let me see. I wasn't paying attention to the handhold.
Because it looks like he pulls the fingers up away from her.
Yeah, because basically here, let's pay attention to the pulse. So when the handhold is going this direction and it's closer to us in the camera, it's moving faster because that's the pulse. And then when it comes back this way on Ben's side of the connection, it's moving slower. So it pulses really strongly to the left, relaxes to the right, pulses really strongly to the left, relaxes to the right. And those are screen directions, not his. It's the opposite of what his directions are. But what happens is he basically lifts it up and he doesn't pulse again.
Yeah.
And then there's a tether for her because she's not being driven. She's like moving faster than the handhold. And very
so then
subtle,
he pulls up
nice.
And releases. And I don't know that she was totally prepared for that. Like she could clearly feel him moving the arm up, but I'm not sure she was totally ready for him to like just release her totally. Which I think is why she ends up doing this weird kind of like falling thing.
Yeah, because she's very much, even though she has this lovely leg right here, her momentum and her pitch is such that she is falling onto that foot.
So what's happening is, can you go back to like right when he's releasing? Because she has the right arm up and he's moving her arm further up above her and then releasing. And so then she has extra weight going to her right side. So that's why she's then releasing that left foot and also opening it up and straightening it out so she can balance herself a little bit more, even though she's still falling to her right. So we can see now she has extra arm weight going to the right, and she's trying to now balance it by also releasing that left leg out. And it's partially because Ben is so close to her, so she couldn't necessarily continue. But also she's just kind of tipping as well. So that's why we have this like falling to the side moment. But she does a really good job recovering out of it and making it into something because she has so much momentum from the extra swing of the arm and the leg out around her that she couldn't easily just like fall and then face him, right? So she has too much momentum for that. She then continues it through and like intentionally turns it into like a stylized turn of sorts, and then finishes it with an arm. So she's really here just like working with the momentum that she has from kind of falling out of that.
Yep.
So I just wanted to explain that real fast.
Yeah, no, that's a good thing to explain.
It's a good way to like playfully work out of something that wasn't quite what you were expecting.
Yeah, and that brings to mind just like a basic fundamental technique is the tolerance to be falling so that way you can land with intention.
Yeah.
And so trusting that yes, your center is going past your feet. You're falling, but trusting yourself to have the control to create a foot strike underneath you to catch yourself, but on time with the music.
And I also want to add to that a foot strike that is not a straight leg. It needs to be a softened knee that you're falling into so that you can catch yourself.
Yeah, it's hard to see because it's directly away from us, but it's
Yeah.
you can tell that when her left foot touches the floor right here, there is still bend to her knee, and it straightens as she arrives over it.
Yeah. And the reason that it looks so straight is because of how far away it is from her striking. Yeah. Like it's striking across her body. And so she's more so reaching into it, but she doesn't have a straight leg. She's not stepping onto a straight leg.
Right.
She does, however, intentionally extend that leg out and have like a little fairly straight moment as it's kind of crossing her body. But she doesn't step on it that way.
Yeah.
And this is just to make it look a little nicer.
Yeah, it bends as it approaches the floor. Dancing, falling with style and control.
Yep. You got to know what you're doing.
I love this pose she strikes right here. It's just so stinking delightful.
It makes me think of like a hustle.
I know.
Yeah. I love that.
So great. So we're approaching the end of the song. And so even though they have been using amazing tools and technique to manage their energy, no matter how well you're managing your energy to the speed of the song, you're gonna get tired. and so you gotta like pull some other tools out of the tool bag to not die. And so these kind of like back and forth are really great because you get to be in a wide stance, mostly split weight, just kind of bouncing from side to side. And it's a really great break for both of them.
Yeah.
And then I love like it's very clear Ben has an idea right here. The way he's lifting up his left leg. Yeah. It's like he's ready for something, but he sees that she is looking away from him, and not only with her head, but her whole body is turned away from him. And he's like, okay, abort, time to pay attention. And of course, her idea is genius. And so he goes with it and lets it happen. Oh my God, it's so fun. I love it so much.
So much booty popping.
I know. Here's another great example of Ben doing a rotation and finishing his rotation before really starting to lead her. So it's only ever so slightly shifting to her left as it's crossing his head, but the real rotation comes right there. One does not combine these things. They take turns.
Yes.
And then of course, some more silliness.
I would like to point out that Torri just like really worked with what she was given there for that little like hip pop, because she gets put in like a slightly awkward position, just because of, I think, the speed that she's moving at, and then she's stopped.
Yeah, so this one right here.
Yeah. And so she kind of gets into this. It's a little bit awkward because of where her feet end up. They're pretty close underneath her. In terms of like, I would say in this position, she would more diagonally want space in between her feet. And they're pretty right next to each other and pretty close right next to each other. And so having this where she's also kind of leaning a little bit away with the upper body from Ben. So it's a little bit awkward positioning for her. And so rather than like totally move out of it, because the speed of the song is so fast, it would be hard for her to really do anything else in this moment. So she just kind of goes with it and does this little like hip thing. But she's very intentional about the choice for it. Even though it's a little bit awkward, she still is choosing to do that and doing it at speed.
And then I want to add, like, Ben is being really clear that this is a catch and stay.
Yeah.
So he cushions the impact of her stopping really abruptly after that really fast rotation, and he's providing stability. And his hands are, I want to say they're not against her like liver and stuff, but I don't think they are. She's shorter, so that's less of a problem. If you were to go directly in between my hips and my lower ribs on me, I would be in pain because there be organs there. And that's not where you connect with the follow. But he's just offering a lot of stability with both of his hands. So it's really clear that she gets to stop, and they also get to take another break together.
Yes. It looks so to fast. Me, I know, it looks to me like he's aiming for the hip with one hand and kind of the lower rib with the other.
Yeah.
Because they're a little bit offset.
Yeah, but you know me, I get stabbed in the liver enough that I will never shut up about that detail.
I will add, because of the speed of the song, it would be really hard to like perfectly pinpoint where his hands are going to be placed in this particular type of rotation catch. But it looks like he's aiming for maybe a hip and a lower rib, just based on where his hands are ending up.
Right.
But yes, don't intentionally go for the space in between the hip and the rib.
Yeah. I think it really just comes from a basic, I don't know, it's something you don't think about because you don't have to think about it most of the time. But like on a taller individual, their waist, the part where they like bend at the waist when they tip to the side, that is often not ribs. Whereas on a shorter person, that could include ribs. But on a taller person, that's just abdominal tissue. There is no bone there. And so remembering that you don't want to be applying sudden, intense pressure to just flesh.
Yeah, because like on detail. Me, there's about this much space between the end of my rib and the top of my hip bone. So it's not much on me. And so like that wouldn't be something that would be a big deal on my torso. I have a rather short torso.
Thumb to tip of middle finger on me. That's
so it's a big difference. Torri's, I think, like pretty close to my height. I think she's gonna be a little bit shorter than me. And she's built very similarly proportion wise. So I would say that hers is probably also pretty similar in terms of like there's not much space between the last rib and the top of the hip bone. So
I'm not getting tired of this dance at all. I love it so much. But we are gratefully, I think they are more grateful than we are, coming to the end. This was entered so expertly, and then the dismount was just so confusing. Because like Torri is doing an absolutely masterful job of counterbalancing herself and prepping
Mhm.
first that rotation. Oh, it's just the 1 foot the whole time. I can't count. But getting into this rotation and changing her pitch from because of the way her arm is moving in relationship to her. Um, and Ben's doing a great job of maintaining it until like right here.
Yeah. The reason she comes up into this bent leg position is because she can't keep that position she was in, that really stretched out position, and go
right.
past Ben.
Right.
So she naturally just pulls it in and gets into a little bit weirder shape.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think Ben's like,
Yep. So this is one of those, like, he's doing a great job. He is erring on the side of less variables
yeah,
for her. So that's important. And he's offering stability with that other hand. And then basically this is a game of them managing her momentum afterwards.
yeah.
And it could have been done better. But I kind of love it's a little chaotic just because of the tone of the dance that they've been having.
Yep. It works
It's very
well.
much like I'm a little teapot right here. I don't know why. That's the vibe I'm getting. And then we have this never ending what is happening and Torri being like, oh yeah. Her face is so great. She's like, oh no. Oh no.
I mean, she's at a really terrible angle for him to make a voice. Like, it works out fine. And it's one of those things where, like, the lead knows that they can lead them through it safely, but for the follow, it feels real precarious.
Your whole life flashes before your eyes. It's like, is this going to be one that ends well or ends badly?
Yep. In terms of safety wise, it's fine. Feeling wise for Torri, probably not great.
Yeah.
Based on her face.
Yep.
You
So
know,
she was just turning to the right and now she's turning to the left. And the way I'm seeing it is the way she is going into this dip is her body is very much going in this direction to the end of the slot and down.
Yep.
And then suddenly he's like, go further in that direction. And she's like,
yeah. And the main problem is that her feet are totally together when she goes and like is released into that same direction.
Yeah.
Right. So she only has one point that she's working off of.
Yep. She manages to get her right foot just ever so slightly closer underneath her center.
Yep.
But
that's why it's so like such a scary moment for her, is because she has her feet like together, like it's 1 point. Because of the way that she's entering into this little dip. Because of the way he puts her into it, she has 1 point and she's at a diagonal, and she's really relying on him. And so then when he's like, actually keep going that way, she's like, oh, I only have 1 point to work with. Okay. It ends up great though. It's fun.
Oh my God, Lisa's face. So great. Oh my God, I didn't know Ben's mouth could open that wide. Somebody doesn't have DMJ. He might. I don't know. I'm just making up shit at this point. All right. I appreciate that we went meta and we were playful with our playfulness episode.
Yes. Great. Good choice for us.
All right. Well, this has been so much fun. Thank you all for joining us. Hope those of you watching the recording also had a grand old time. We will be back in July. What is time?
Yep.
We will talk to you soon.
Yes.
Bye.
Later.
I was in the before times. I was social dancing locally, and it was a crowded floor, so it's kind of one of those moments where you're just paying more attention to what's going on around you, as you should. And I noticed that a follow in the slot at the end of our slot was like their slot kept going places. And I just had to be hyper aware of where this follow was at all times, because their leader wasn't really paying attention to where they were sending them. It wasn't the follow's fault. And then I noticed after this, I'm like going through a passing tuck aimed at them. So I'm very aware of what's going on. And after I come out of the tuck, I'm like, I'm going to offset my anchor by a lot. And as soon as I turned around back to face like the slot and my partner, I see that follow just move into the space where I would have been really aggressively and out. And my partner and I just looked at each other and we like lost all composure. We just laughed and like doubled over because like it was perfect. It was perfect. Like puzzle pieces and like passing traffic. It was amazing. Anyways.
Dion is looking like he's questioning what he's saying.
Oh my god. For those who don't know,
Like,
this is Dion. It's like, wow. So perfect. If you also have an impending heat wave, enjoy.
Must be 104 tomorrow.
Like, it's essentially been winter here. And then we have a heat advisory, heat wave warning for like starting tomorrow.